So, back in 1665, this young guy, Isaac Newton, was actually stuck at home. The Great Plague had basically shut down his whole university, forcing him to just isolate in his childhood house.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty familiar, right?
Right. But, I mean, he didn't just sit around waiting for it to end. During that time at home, he literally discovered calculus, figured out the laws of gravity, and experimented with optics right there in his bedroom.
That is, I mean, that's just wild.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we aren't saying you have to go and invent calculus today, but we are looking at this fascinating stack of sources, university course notes on creative writing, beginner videos on watercolor, articles on online learning, and they all prove you don't need a fancy retreat or a private laboratory to completely transform your mind and your life.
It's an incredibly empowering collection of research, honestly, because, we spend so much of our lives inside our own homes, and it's so easy to just default to the couch, right? Just watching TV or like scrolling on our phones until bedtime.
Oh, totally. I am guilty of that for sure.
We all are. But these beginner guides and articles we're looking at today, they really show how you can build a deeply enriched, totally balanced life using simple tools you probably already have sitting right in your living room.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to break these sources down into really simple, easy-to-try steps. Whether you want to write a story, paint, grow a garden, or even learn to code, we're going to show you exactly how to start. Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can learn a digital skill or paint a canvas, every single force points to the exact same starting line, which is clearing the mind.
Right, you have to start there.
Right, so we have to begin with mindfulness and meditation. It's like cleaning the dirty windows of your house so you can finally see outside clearly.
I love that analogy because if you try to learn a complex new hobby while your brain is still, processing all the stress of your workday, you're going to get frustrated and quit. Meditation acts as a reset button for your nervous system.
So how do we actually do it? Because meditation can sound kind of intimidating.
It really doesn't have to be. Our sources outline two very simple types of meditation for absolute beginners. The first is called focus meditation, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You pick a single point of focus, maybe the flame of a candle, or just the physical feeling of your own breath.
Okay, breath or a candle. Got it.
Yeah, and then when your brain naturally wanders away to think about, say, a stressful email from your boss, you simply notice that and pull your attention right back to the breath.
Focusing on a candle makes sense, but isn't there a huge risk of just totally zoning out? Like, how do we prevent this from just turning into a sleepy staring contest?
That is a really great distinction to make. Zoning out is totally passive. Your brain is just going blank, but focused meditation is highly active. You are consciously anchoring your attention. It's essentially a push-up for your brain's concentration networks.
Oh, okay. A brain push-up. I like that. But what if I just get really sleepy?
If you do find yourself getting super sleepy, don't worry, that's a completely normal obstacle. Your brain just naturally associates sitting still with going to sleep. The simple fix is to just sit up straight in a firm chair instead of sinking into your soft bed. Or, just open a window so the cool air keeps your senses sharp.
Makes sense. But what about the other type? What if trying to focus on one single thing actually makes me more anxious?
Yeah, that happens to a lot of people. In that case, you might prefer the second type, which is mindfulness meditation. Instead of anchoring to one point, you just sit and observe your thoughts passing by, kind of like cars driving by on a highway.
Just watching them go by.
Exactly. And the crucial mechanism here is non-judgment. So if you suddenly remember a deadline you missed, the goal isn't to punish yourself or panic. You just acknowledge the thought, like, there's a thought about work, and you just let it drive right past.
Okay, so you don't chase the car, you just watch it.
Right. And doing this regularly actually lowers your heart rate, drastically drops your daily stress hormones, and trains your brain to stop reacting so strongly to every little worry.
I've also heard people complain that they can't meditate because, they live in a noisy apartment or near a really busy street.
Oh, sure. The noise excuse.
Yeah. But the sources actually say you don't need perfect silence, right? Like, if a loud truck drives by, you just treat the sound of the truck as one of those cars on the highway. You just notice it.
Exactly. It's just another thing passing by.
But I do have a super practical question. What if I just can't sit still for very long? Is it even worth doing if I only have, 5 minutes?
What's fascinating here is that the research explicitly states short, 3 to 5 minute sessions are actually vastly superior for beginners.
Wait, really? Superior.
Yes, because if you try to force a full hour right away, your brain will view it as this massive chore and you will totally quit by Wednesday. But if you commit to just 5 minutes, you are actually building the neural pathways of a daily habit. And it's basically painless.
Wow, so just focus on the habit first.
Exactly. Once that habit is locked in, your brain will naturally crave more of that calm, and you'll easily move up to 10 or 20 minutes without feeling forced at all.
Okay, so we've taken our 5 minutes. We've wiped the dusty windows of our mind clean. Now, without all that loud internal noise, new ideas are naturally going to start bubbling up. But how do we capture them? I mean, words are usually the first tool we reach for.
Getting thoughts onto paper is definitely the easiest way to get what's inside your head out into the real world. The sources recommend starting with something really structured, like bullet journaling.
And you don't need some expensive, complicated app for that.
Right, not at all. You literally just take a basic pen and paper and use simple bullet points to quickly log your daily tasks, track your moods, and map out your bigger life goals. It just gets the clutter out of your head so you can actually look at it.
And the sources mention you can actually pair that journaling with this thing called fake calligraphy. I always assumed you needed like specialized brushes and years of training to make those beautiful curly letters.
Most people think that. But no, you actually just write in your normal cursive, and then you manually draw an extra thick line on all the downward strokes of the letters.
So simple.
Yeah, and it forces you to slow down your handwriting, which physically slows down your breathing, too. It turns a simple chore like writing a grocery list into a calming, almost meditative practice.
That's amazing. And once you get comfortable just putting a pen to paper like that, you might find yourself wanting to express bigger ideas, maybe even, write a story. But I feel like people are deeply intimidated by creative writing.
Oh, absolutely. Because we treat authors like they're magicians. We think they just sit down, stare at the ceiling, and a best-selling novel just magically falls out of their sleeves.
Right. But the university course notes we looked at completely destroy that myth. They prove writing is really just a step-by-step process. They break it down into Graham Wallace's 4 stages of creativity.
Let's hear them.
So the first stage is preparation. This is just doing your research, reading other books, and gathering all your raw ideas.
Right, so you're just loading the raw materials into your brain.
Exactly. And stage 2 is the one people usually skip, which is why they fail. It's called incubation. After you gather the ideas, you must walk away.
Walk away.
Yeah, you stop actively thinking about the story. When you do this, your brain's background processor, the default mode network, takes over. It silently begins connecting those raw ideas while you're just, doing the dishes or folding laundry.
Okay, letting the brain work in the background.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the notes address the absolute terror of writer's block. People view writer's block as this massive brick wall stopping them. But if you understand this incubation phase, writer's block isn't a wall at all. It's just like putting a cake in the oven.
Oh, I like that.
Right. You mix the ingredients during the preparation phase, but you can't force the cake to bake faster by just staring at the oven. You have to step back and let the heat do the work. If you're stuck, your idea just needs more baking time.
That is a really brilliant way to frame it. Writer's block is just baking time. And then that background processing eventually leads to stage 3, which is illumination.
The famous aha moment.
Exactly. The idea suddenly clicks into place while you're like walking the dog. And finally, you reach stage 4, which is verification. This is where you put your critical editor hat on. You sit back down, check the logic, fix the messy grammar, and polish the raw output into a real story.
And when you are actually writing those sentences, the absolute golden rule from the course notes is show, don't tell.
Ah, yes, the classic rule.
Yeah, so if you want to say a character is angry, just writing he was angry is incredibly boring because it doesn't trigger any real empathy in the reader's brain. Instead, you write, he squeezed the plastic pen until it cracked.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's so much better.
Right, because the reader physically knows what breaking plastic feels like, so they feel the anger themselves.
That mechanism of making the reader do a little bit of the emotional work is so crucial. And it actually connects perfectly to Hemingway's famous iceberg theory.
Oh, how so?
Well, when you look at an iceberg in the ocean, you only see the tip, maybe 10% of it, right? But you can sense the massive, dangerous weight of the ice hidden underwater. In writing, the dialogue and the physical actions are just the tip of the iceberg.
So what's underneath?
The heavy stuff underneath the past trauma, the secret fears that stuff doesn't need to be explained in long, boring paragraphs. If you show the right physical details like cracking the pen, the reader will feel all that hidden weight instinctively.
That makes so much sense. But let's be real for a second. What if you are sitting there with a blank page and you don't even have an iceberg to start with, like zero ideas?
Well, the sources actually provide a great brainstorming framework for that called the Scamper method. It's an acronym that basically forces your brain to look at old ideas from completely new angles.
Okay, what does it stand for?
It stands for substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse.
That's a lot. Give me an example.
Sure, if you are totally stuck, take a story everyone already knows, like Little Red Riding Hood, and apply just one of those verbs. Let's take reverse. What if we reverse the morality of the characters?
Oh, interesting.
Right, so suddenly the big bad wolf is actually an innocent park ranger trying to protect the woods, and Little Red Riding Hood is this dangerous, invasive threat. By just flipping one single variable, you instantly have a brand new plot to explore.
That is super clever. But sometimes, though, words just aren't enough. Even with the iceberg theory, some feelings just don't have vocabulary, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's when we have to step away from language entirely and move into physical touch and color. Our sources dive deeply into watercolor painting, crafting, and even indoor gardening as the next level of building this home retreat.
Moving from abstract words to actual physical materials is incredibly grounding. And watercolor is arguably the most approachable medium for beginners. The guides really stress that you do not need a fancy art studio.
Just a kitchen table's fine, right?
Exactly. You really just need 3 basic brush sizes to start. A size 10 for big areas, a size 6 for normal work, and a tiny size 2 for the little details. But the only strict rule is the paper.
Oh, right. The paper is super important.
Yes, you need thick watercolor paper, usually between 140 and 250 grams. Otherwise, the water will just warp and totally destroy it.
Because the absolute secret to watercolor isn't actually the paint at all. The mechanism that makes it work is the water.
Right.
Like, you don't go out and buy 50 different shades of blue paint. You buy one single blue and you use the water to control how light or dark it is. If you use a ton of water and just a tiny drop of paint, you get a beautiful, soft, transparent sky blue. But if you use almost no water, you get a harsh, dark navy.
It's basically teaching you to manage delicate balances. The guides break down 4 fundamental techniques to practice. First is the flat wash, which is literally just painting a solid, even block of color across the paper.
Super basic.
Yep. Second is the fade down. You load the brush with thick paint at the top of the page and just drag it downward. As the brush runs out of paint and only leaves water behind, the color naturally creates a really smooth gradient, fading gently into white.
And the third one is wet on dry, right? Which just means putting wet paint onto totally dry paper.
Exactly.
That's how you get those sharp, crisp edges for things like buildings or tiny tree branches. But the fourth technique is the really magic one. It's called wet on wet. You brush completely clean water onto the paper first, and then you just drop the wet paint right into the puddles. The colors bleed, they spiderweb, and they mix together in ways you basically cannot predict.
Exactly. With wet on wet, you give up total control. You let the physics of the water take over. It's an amazing lesson in accepting imperfection.
It's like letting the water drive the car while you just sit in the passenger seat and enjoy the ride.
That's a perfect way to describe it. But, if paint just isn't your preference, the sources heavily encourage other tactile crafts too. Working with acrylic paints gives you bright, really thick textures, and crocheting is another fantastic option.
Oh, I've seen so many people getting into crochet lately.
Yeah, because the simple mechanism of tying repetitive knots with yarn actually mimics the calming rhythm of deep breathing. It physically soothes your nervous system, and at the end of it, you have a physical scarf or a coaster you can actually use.
Or scrapbooking, where you physically cut paper and glue your memories into a tangible book instead of just letting all your photos die in your phone's digital storage.
Yes.
And we don't have to just stop at paper and yarn either. We can actually bring real biological life into our homes. The sources on sustainable living highlight indoor gardens. You can start really small with just a little succulent on your windowsill, or go bigger by planting cherry tomatoes and bright flowers in pots out on your apartment balcony.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of these physical hobbies actually serve a vital psychological function. Taking care of a living plant, like watching a green shoot push up through the soil just because you remember to water, it gives you a really profound sense of responsibility.
It makes you feel needed.
Exactly. In an era where our jobs are mostly just, sending emails into the void, growing a plant or crocheting a scarf gives us tangible, physical proof that we created something real. It grounds us back in the physical world.
Okay, so we've cleared the static in our minds with meditation. We've captured our wandering thoughts with journaling and storytelling. And we've grounded our physical bodies with watercolor and soil. Now it is time to challenge the logic centers of the brain.
Time for a completely different gear.
Let's talk about upgrading our digital skills at home, specifically learning how to code.
This is where we pivot from emotional expression to actively building modern tools. The articles on online learning explain that platforms like Udemy and Coursera have completely democratized education.
It's crazy how accessible it is now.
It really is. You can learn incredibly complex skills on your own schedule for basically the cost of a few cups of coffee. And the skill they emphasize the absolute most for the modern landscape is programming.
And the sources are very clear that you have to pick the right language for your specific goal. Like if you want to dive into data science or artificial intelligence, Python is the top recommendation.
Yep, Python is huge.
And the reason is its syntax, which is just the way the code is actually written, is remarkably close to plain English, so you don't get bogged down in all those confusing symbols. But if you want to build interactive websites, you learn JavaScript. And if you want to design video games, C# is the industry standard.
But regardless of the language you pick, the absolute rule is that you must learn the alphabet before you try to write a novel.
What do you mean by the alphabet?
You have to understand the core logic blocks. You need to know what an algorithm is, which is simply a step-by-step list of instructions to solve a problem. You have to understand loops, which just tell the computer to repeat an action until a specific condition is met. And you need to understand functions, which are these little packages of code that perform one specific job so you don't have to rewrite it over and over again.
So what does this all mean? If I'm a beginner, why should I spend months learning these loops and functions when we live in the era of artificial intelligence? I mean, I can literally open ChatGPT right now, type, build me a calculator app, and it will spit out perfect code in 5 seconds.
That is a very fair point.
And also, just a quick pushback on the difficulty here. Does someone need to be a math genius to even understand what a function is?
This raises an important question, and it's actually the #1 roadblock for people trying to learn tech skills today. Let's tackle the AI question first. Yes, AI can generate code, but AI makes mistakes. It hallucinates. If you don't understand the underlying alphabet, the loops, and the algorithms, you won't know how to spot the error when the app inevitably crashes.
You won't even know what you're looking at.
Right. You won't know how to give the AI the precise logical prompts it needs to fix the issue. You have to understand the foundation so you can be the director of the AI, not just a helpless bystander hoping it works.
That makes total sense. You can't effectively edit a book if you don't even know how to read the language. But what about the math anxiety?
The fear of math is actually the biggest misconception about coding. Programming is not advanced calculus. It is much closer to learning the rules of a complex board game or, honestly, just following a recipe in a kitchen.
A recipe.
Really? Think about it. An algorithm is literally just the recipe. A loop is just telling the chef, keep stirring the soup until it boils. You don't write the word stir 50 times on the page. You just set the condition to stop when it boils. And a function is just saying, whenever I say the word prep, chop the onions and the garlic. It's pure logic and organization. It requires patience and clear communication, not a math degree.
I really love that recipe analogy.
Yeah.
It completely removes the intimidation factor. Coding is really just writing very clear, organized instructions for a machine that takes things way too literally.
Exactly. It just does exactly what you say. And the best way to master that logic is by building real projects. Don't just read about it. The sources suggest using a free editor like VS Code on your laptop and building a simple digital calculator or maybe a basic text-based game. The confidence you get from making a machine follow your exact logic is just incredible.
We have covered incredible ground today. We started with the mission to see if we could transform our homes into personal retreats for growth, and our sources have given us a truly brilliant roadmap. By combining these different practices, you can create a completely balanced life right in your living room. You can meditate to quiet the noise and clear your focus. You can write stories and paint watercolors to process your complex emotions. You can grow a balcony garden to stay anchored to the physical earth. And you can learn the logical rules of coding to build modern tools for your future.
It's really a holistic approach to being human. You are exercising your mental clarity, your emotional depth, your physical hands, and your logical brain, all without even leaving your house. And I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder as you go about your day.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you take just 15 minutes of the time you currently spend aimlessly scrolling on your phone and dedicate it to just one of these practices, whether it's wet on wet painting or writing a simple coding loop, imagine the compounding effect. Who will you be exactly 1 year from today? What kind of new world will you have built entirely inside your own home?